The Pitt Expeditions are introducing a new set of rules in a dungeon-like concept, and there's plenty of things to learn, so I created this essentials guide with everything you should know. Hello everyone, welcome back to another Fallout 76 video. The Pitt Expeditions is bringing a brand new system to 76, featuring all sorts of new content, from story, lore, NPCs, to a new map with new missions, dailies, rewards, and so much more. Now, the learning curve is not too intense here, but there's some getting used to, especially when it comes to restrictions, rules, and hidden facts that Bethesda doesn't really tell you. As such, I created this video which will guide you through the entire system, starting with the process of launching an expedition, going through all sorts of expedition features, and ending with all the rewards you can get so far. I hope you're ready. Let's do this. When you first log in after the Expeditions update, you will probably notice a giant new button whenever you access the map. Now, this icon features the Pitt Bridge, and it's basically a modified version of the old Fallout 3's icon used for achievements, which looked like this. As to be expected, players must click on this icon to access expeditions, but is it the only way? The system is not very intuitive here. First, because Expeditions has its own special placement. Why isn't it an entry like Daily Ops or a public event at the World Activity menu? And secondly, because the in-game intro interface states that vertibirds are standing at the top of the Whitespring resort to travel to expeditions outside of Appalachia. One will assume that this is the only way out, but not really. When you get there, you will soon notice that the vertibird around has no interactions. It's just a huge decor asset. Even when you talk to the pilot NPC, there is no option to start an expedition. So if you haven't tried this new system yet, remember to think in the most unrealistic way possible, and you are certain to find your way into the pit. Now, joining an expedition is super easy. There's no pre-requirements even. You can join right away as soon as the leader launches one. So if you join a team which has an expedition running already, you can join right away even with new characters. And even if you did not complete any of the new responders missions or the Refuge dailies, that's totally fine, because there is no limit or restrictions here. You can join and do as many expeditions as you want. But for team leaders, things are very different. There are a few restrictions in place that you should know about. First of all, you need to fully charge Ultracells batteries to launch your expedition. To obtain such items, you need to complete 3 daily Refuge missions. Keep in mind that some responder dailies reward you with 25% charge and others 50%. Also, the max charge you can carry at any time is only 100%, so that's another indirect limitation. If you need more details on the Refuge dailies and how everything works, you can check my other guide here featuring responders' new missions. Now, the second restriction is a harsh one. Each player can only launch 1 expedition per day, as Bethesda already unveiled. In other words, running expeditions at your own pace and will can only happen once daily. Now, that doesn't look very promising, especially for solo players, but let's keep moving. Okay, now before we go further into the Pitt facts, I want to mention a few things about the Responder's new base of operations located at the Whitespring resort, which is now called the Whitespring Refuge. Besides the obvious rework here to both interior and exterior parts, Bethesda also created a division. The interior of Whitespring is now divided into 2 cells, the Whitespring Refuge and the Whitespring Mall. At the Refuge, in the upper levels, you can explore a reworked area with dozens of new NPCs, assets, and of course, juicy lore. Now, to access the shopping mall, you need to interact with the respective entrances. There is one right at the main entrance, as shown. Just to make it clear, downstairs, and here you go. Bethesda did not change anything inside the mall, and the vendors are all there as per usual. Everything should be the same as before. Apart from these new wooden walls, of course, blocking the stairs to ensure this space is now a proper cell and there's no way in or out besides the main doors. As a result, you can no longer roam freely between the levels. You need to go through the loading screen first. Lastly, there is a new fast travel option for this location. You can now choose to spawn directly inside the refuge or at the exterior as it happened before this update. Still on the Whitespring Refuge topic, some of the daily missions require players to deliver piles of junk, like wood or steel, so it's handy to know that Bethesda added a new stash and scrap box at the right wing of the Refuge. It's the very first scrap box in the map, by the way, besides the ones we can place at camps and workshops. These two new additions are close to Sophie, one of the daily mission NPCs, as you can see here in the footage. This way, you no longer need to head outside to grab what's needed. I totally missed this one during my first session. Ay caramba, the blindness is real, but they are clearly there. So I wanted to make sure the same doesn't happen to you. Alright, now let's head to the pit. If you launch your own expedition, then there's a little detail to have in mind once you click the Start Expedition button through your map. Because there's yet another button to click, the Intercom to request landing, which works like a second step or a second trigger to really begin the expedition. If you are a normal teammate, then just enjoy the ride, because there's nothing for you to do here besides taking some cinematics, I would say. Hey, at least it's immersive. I think it was a great detail to include it. Anyway, after a little dialogue, your screen should go black, but don't worry, it's a stealthy loading screen into the pit. One of the first things I found out after entering the pit was the fact that there is no map. Seriously, I check my map all the time while playing, and for my surprise, when I clicked M, all I could see was a grayed out Appalachian map. I even considered this might be some sort of bug, but after asking my teammates if they saw the same, I concluded this is a feature to force players to, well, explore, get used to the new space, and sort of memorize all the areas. It's the hard way, a bit unnecessary if you'd ask me, but hey, it's not too bad. The pit is not that big anyway, so I bet after a dozen of runs you'll feel confident about your navigation skills regarding the pit. Next, let's talk about how expedition missions operate. Right now, Bethesda only enabled one mission, Union Dues, and it features 9 different objectives. Each one only uses 3 per mission at random though, which can keep the gameplay fresh and dynamic for a while. Now, keep in mind that each objective is attached to NPCs and plenty of dialogue options, but I'm skipping it all here for this video to avoid major lore spoilers. As for the objectives themselves, they are all very straightforward and fairly easy to complete. As far as I know, the objectives are all about finding and retrieving something, escorting/defending someone, or cleaning a certain area from hostiles. The optional objectives follow the same logic too. Now, I would love to show you the 9 objectives here, but I didn't have a chance to go through all of them yet, so you can get a short preview from the footage on your screen of what I had so far. My first objective was to escort this Union saboteur while he did his duties at his own pace, and of course protect him from fanatic forces, 4 waves to be exact. The second objective was a bit more complicated. We had to sabotage different devices. First we had to intercept with some sort of radios, and then we had to search a wide area to find 3 types of items: chemical containments, sealing agents, and unstable mixtures. Lastly, we had to defend a group of Union members against a Trog wave, a really big one, which includes dozens of them. It was pretty intense at some point. They can even spit on you, causing acid poison damage, so it's best to avoid their ranged attacks whenever you can. Anyway, I hope this can give you an idea of what objectives to expect from the pit. Talking about mission objectives, since there is no map here, it's not so easy to keep track of where you must go next. It's crucial to keep an eye on your compass at all times, but keep in mind that the mission marks in the pit work locally. Well, mostly. From my experience, when you have to talk or deliver something to an NPC or head to a specific area, the mission mark will always show up in your compass. But if you have to find items, you need to do it on your own, which makes sense in the end. I mean, if an NPC requesting you to retrieve something knew where the given stuff were, they probably would get it themselves instead of requesting outside help, just saying. So if you encounter this area, yellow glow, it means you need to search on your own and find the objective. Call it logic or luck, sometimes both really. However, there is a huge game changer here. Whenever you get close to the objective, the mission mark will pop up. Well, for the most part. The Steel Ingots objective is a very good example of this one. There is no mission mark unless you get close to its current location, as shown in this clip. Lastly, there are also objectives where no marks will ever show up, like never ever, such as this objective to collect different types of quest items. The compass always told us to search the area and that's it. We had to find it with our own eyes without any sort of help from the compass. In the end, it's a balanced system. You just need to know how it works and what to do per objective, and then the difficulty instantly drops down, in my opinion. Expedition objectives don't work the same way for everyone though. Let me explain. If you are a regular team member, you can always complete objectives, but you can't really start or finish them. Basically, any NPC dialogues can only be done by team leaders, which means leaders have a decent level of control over their run. This also means everyone else has to wait for team leaders to get things moving and going forward. Another team leader perk or power is the ability to teleport everyone to you whenever you enter a cell. And here I was searching for the Union supplies and entered the foundry on my own. Then a few seconds later, I realized my entire team had spawned at the door behind me. Then in voice, they told me they got pulled there out of fast travel. So watch out for this one when you are a leader, because it can be really annoying if everybody is doing their own stuff, looking at each corner of the map, and suddenly everyone gets pulled into one specific location and they have to go back. Yeah, it's not very funny. Lastly, only team leaders can complete an expedition, which means they have full control over the objectives. If the leader decides to rush through all the objectives or vice versa, there's nothing you can do about it. Since we are on the topic of leader perks, let me inform you that leaders can pause and resume expeditions at any time, whenever they please. In fact, if the leader simply crashes, disconnects, or closes the game, the ongoing expedition's progress will be automatically saved according to Bethesda. To resume the expedition, the leader can just access the expedition's interface, and there is a button down there about ongoing expeditions, which is what you need to do to resume. Now, this is an awesome feature for the leader, of course, but for everyone else, not really. Imagine you spent half an hour doing all the objectives and working hard to complete everything, and then you end up getting booted because your leader is no longer in game or decided to do something else. If this happens, you will miss your progress and your rewards too. No bueno at all, but this is currently how the system works. I'm just the messenger, so don't get angry at me. By now, you probably noticed that there is no timer or countdown clock anywhere. Not in the expedition's interfaces or in the loading screens, not in the main interface, nowhere really. Well, that's because expeditions are no time gated, which means you have all the time in the world to complete them. As long as you are the team leader, of course. Full control is a leader perk only. Also, I spotted this code from developer Steve, who confirmed there is and there will be no time limit to complete expeditions. So this sort of freedom will stick around, even for further missions and new expeditions possibly coming in 2023. Now let's go over enemies in the pit. According to Bethesda, there is a difficulty balance and an enemy scaling systems in place. So in theory, enemies should scale depending on the number of teammates and player levels. But is it really happening right now? Well, I'm afraid not. On my end, enemies were extremely easy to kill and most, like 80-90%, spawn as level 50. According to developer Steve, there are bugs in this scaling system, which is most likely what caused my weak enemy experience. Note that expeditions are still on a very early phase, so I'm confident the scaling feature will improve until fall. Hopefully. The Pit is introducing several new enemies, or well, variations of existing ones at least. The main hostile forces here are the Fanatics, a new group of raiders who seem to know how to operate robots. So we can expect to see all sorts of Fanatics, from normal armored ones to power armor users, existing robots, and even new models, like this new variation of a Protracton with a brand new hat. I even came across this chemist fanatic wearing a hazmat suit, so there may be even more different enemies around, besides the new Trogs, of course. These are the only true new enemies, I would say. Let's talk a bit about Trogs now. I think we all agree that the Pit wouldn't be the same without Trogs, and Bethesda has done an amazing job with the new enemy models. These creatures look pretty scary and there's different types of them. According to Bethesda, Trogs now possess a group behavior and different classes, like melee or ranged. During my expedition, Trogs were surely the toughest enemy to beat. In fact, they have special abilities. Some of them can even spit on you, causing poison/acid damage when the spit cloud hits you. There's even this special Trog called Devour. It's supposed to be an elite or some sort of mini boss. It has increased defenses and a bonus skill, the Fear Panic skill, which is typical of Earl, the world boss. However, it doesn't live long against a 4-man party, so it's definitely not a real boss or anything close to one. But nonetheless, it's still pretty exciting to find such special creatures and have some fun, because they are not a usual enemy you fight. Talking about bosses, I'm afraid there aren't any in the Pit, or at least for the time being. I have seen many comments and talked to many people, and so far nobody has encountered a boss there. As far as I know, there are only these special elite enemies who are a bit more tough to kill, similar to Daily Ops bosses at the end, but a bit weaker. Besides the Trog Devourer, who also has special skills, I believe there is a Fanatics Elite as well. Anyway, I spotted this post from developer Steve, who was asked if the Pit will feature bosses, and the answer was not very positive. Steve stated Expeditions is not the best venue for bosses, discouraging the idea of finding such enemies there. Finally, it's time to head out to Expedition Rewards. Once you have completed all your objectives, or as many as you can, go ahead and return home. To do this, the leader must go back to Pilot Lennox at the Vertibird and select the dialogue to return to Appalachia. Now, don't expect much from direct to Expedition Rewards, since Bethesda created a separate pool based on stamps, a brand new currency. I created this infographic to simplify your life, to better understand the drop rates. There are basically 3 rules. The first one is easy. The main objective always grants 1 stamp, since you cannot complete an expedition without ticking the main goal. The second rule is about the team leader status. Leaders always get 2 extra stamps as compensation for delivering a full Ultracell battery at the start. The last rule is about optional objectives. So far there are 3 optional per run, and they work based on tiers. 1 optional objective equals 1 extra stamp, 2 optional means you get 4, and 3 optional unlocks 7 stamps. If you sum these values with the other 2 rules, you can end up with a total of 10 stamps per run. I know it's not much in the end, but if you do everything, the farm gets much easier than if you ignore most of the objectives. Besides the Darek and Giuseppe rewards, Bethesda has announced that players can claim a few more for free, but with a few conditions. If you complete an expedition with all the optional objectives completed, then you will be able to earn one of the new Rare The Pitt rewards at random once per week. Basically, the Giuseppe's pool, you can get 1 of them every week. Now, judging there are 35 new plans already, it will probably take a while to put your hands on the new goodies through this way alone, but that's why the stamps are there, so you can get even more at your own will. Now that you know how the stamp drop rates work, what can you use them for? Well, to exchange for expedition plans, of course. At the Whitespring Refuge, you can now find Giuseppe, a new vendor near Bubbles, the Nuka-Cola vendor. He sells 35 new plans in exchange for stamps, and they are pretty pricey, as you can see. Right now, most of these rewards are mods for the upcoming Auto Axe and Union Power Armor. However, there are a few new items. Here's a short preview to give you an idea of what's coming. There are some cosmetics, such as the Danilo's outfit and hood, as well as the Skippy's outfit and goggles. Then we have other items for camps and workshops, like the Pittsburgh set featuring 3 street items, such as a lamp and a parking meter. There's also the Fanatics barricade, which has an intense Wastelander look. There are also Pittsburgh signs, among other things. Lastly, keep in mind that more rewards will be added later on, possibly when the second The Pitt mission is introduced. To finish off this guide, I just want to let you know that you don't need to check the Expeditions interface all the time when you want to see how much Ultracell charges you have at a given time. Since this is a new currency, it is now placed at your currencies list under Stats and Collections in your Pipboy. You are welcome, by the way. Oh, and stamps are there as well, so it's handy to be able to track all your currencies with one single tab. The Pit will bring a new way to experience 76, that's for sure. I think the concept here for this sort of dungeon is pretty decent and accurate, refreshing even, but the execution, well, that's another story. There's a lot of things that need tweaking and improving. I would go as far as saying some parts need reworks even, but that's exactly why the public test started so early, so they can gather as much public opinion as they can and make the due adjustments. Hopefully. Anyway, this is not an opinion video, so I will keep my thoughts for later. As for now, I hope I could increase your knowledge about the Pit and get you ready for the largest DLC of 2022 for 76. These are the essentials and major features coming for Expeditions. Now keep in mind that there's a lot more stuff going on, and a lot could change until fall. I'm sure the Pit has its share of secrets laying around, so expect even more videos in the future. Well then, thanks for watching. I am Marta Branco, and I will see you all very soon in the next one. Feel free to comment below, leave a like, subscribe, and all of that for more 76 content like this. And a special thanks to all my dear supporters. I will see you all in the next one. Until then, take care, adios, bye bye!